Silly scene speculation continues to revolve around Kyle Busch, as it's been reported that Jogies Racing might have stopped talking to Kyle Busch, and Sam Mayer will return to Junior Motorsports in 2023. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. We've got a ton of NASCAR and other motorsports stories discussed here today on the channel. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into those really quickly. We're going to go ahead and start off paint schemes and sponsorship news first. Let's jump those really quickly. The first paint scheme we're taking a look at is Austin Dillon's 2022 Huck scheme. We're going to be seeing this weekend at Richmond. I like this Huck scheme. Not as much as the other one, but I do like this Huck scheme, and I love that Huck is changing up the branding on this scheme. Looks pretty solid in my opinion, and I'm looking forward to seeing on the racetrack this weekend at Richmond. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Brad Keselowski's 2022 Roush Parts scheme. They're going to see this weekend at Richmond. I've always been a big fan of purple/blue cars. This one's no exception. I think did a really awesome and amazing job on it, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing on the racetrack this weekend at Richmond. Looks great in my honest opinion. And the final paint scheme we are taking a look at is Roger Cruz 2022 Circle Pace scheme be seen this weekend at Richmond. Love the color scheme on this. Of course, Roger Cruz will be driving the 7 for Spire Motorsports this weekend in the Camping World Truck Series. This looks really awesome. Really great in my opinion. And like I said, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing on the racetrack this weekend. It looks amazing in my honest opinion. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Bubba Wallace. Now, Dana McFadden put out a report earlier today in regards to Bubba Wallace, and he did some fact-checking around Bubba Wallace, and he says that Bubba Wallace is the only driver to finish in the top 10 in the last 4 races, and is the only driver to, I believe, have 3 top 5s in the last 4 races. As a matter of fact, I also double-checked and verified this as well. Bubba Wallace has only had 1 finish outside the top 15 since he's gotten back from the break. Bubba Wallace has definitely had a lot more pace and a lot more speed over the last couple weeks, and he's really been showing it. And this proves why he's been really improving. And I would not be entirely shocked or surprised if Bubba Wallace does make the playoffs. He's been much quicker, has shown a lot more pace and a lot more speed. And like I said, it will not surprise if Bubba Wallace makes the playoffs. He's just been so much more consistent, and I've been really impressed with Bubba. He's having the best stretch of his career. The only thing he needs to do now to make it even better is win a race, but he's been close to doing that. I think Bubba could rack up a couple wins for the end of this year. That 23 car has been the top 10 car, and Bubba Wallace has been really improving, and he's 19th in regular season points, which is the highest he's been in the Cup Series points ever, so I think he's got a shot to get it done. Really been impressed with what Bubba Wallace has been doing, and it's really awesome to see for sure that he's been absolutely improving as much as he has been. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Shane Wilson. As Shane Wilson is going to crew chief for Matt Crafton starting this weekend at Richmond. It's unclear how many races Shane Wilson will crew chief, but he's for sure will crew chief this weekend at Richmond and might crew chief for the rest of the season. Shane Wilson had been working, I believe, with Derek Kraus throughout this entire season, but about 5 or 6 weeks ago, he had gotten fired from basically Bill McAnally Racing, and now he will be working with Matt Crafton this weekend. Shane Wilson is a really good crew chief, in my opinion, so this definitely is a really good pickup for sure. I think Shane Wilson will do a good job as a crew chief, hopefully helping Matt Crafton. Of course, Matt Crafton is below the cutoff line currently at the moment by, I believe, 7 or 8 points, so he needs to absolutely improve in that area. But I think Shane Wilson can do a really good job just at that, and I think he's a driver who really can help out Matt Crafton improve. Shane Wilson is a really good crew chief, and I think he's going to be able to help Matt Crafton improve, in my honest opinion. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about DGR Racing. As DGR Racing has made some crew chief changes coming into this weekend at Richmond. In fact, they've done some swaps this weekend when it comes to their crew chiefs. So Jerry Baxter, who usually crew chiefs for the 15 truck for Tanner Gray, will be moving over to work with Hailie Deegan starting this weekend. Mike Hillman Jr. is going to be moving away from Hailie Deegan and will be moving over to work with Tanner Gray. So basically what's going on is there is a swap happening here. I think this is going to be beneficial for both sides. I think Mike Hillman Jr. is a very solid crew chief, and he's also a really good coach as well. He's been a crew chief for many years, and Tanner Gray, I think, is going to benefit. Going back, though, to Jerry Baxter. I think Jerry Baxter is really going to help Hailie Deegan improve. And she's definitely been improving over the last couple weeks. Her performance has definitely been getting faster and faster as the weeks have definitely been going on. But what I've also noticed is Jerry Baxter, who's been in the sport for many years. He's been in the sport for almost 20 years now. He's been doing an amazing job as a crew chief. He helped out Eric Jones when he was driving for the first year of Petty. He did really good with him that year. And he's worked with Bubba Wallace. He's worked with so many great drivers. And I think Jerry Baxter is going to be a huge benefit and a huge asset to Haley Deegan, helping her improve. I think it's some good moves in my opinion, and I'm definitely really excited for sure that they're making these changes for her. I think it's going to be a great move in my opinion. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Buddy Kofo. As Buddy Kofo is making his ARCA debut at the Springfield Mile here really soon. He'll be driving a 15 for Venturini Motorsports. Now, one thing that's really going to help Michael Kofo, also known as Buddy Kofo, is really going to, his advantage is going to be the fact that he has a lot of dirt experience. The thing that's really going to play a factor. Plus, he's big in the Toyota family and also has done really good on dirt throughout his career and is going to be in a really fast car. I think Buddy Kofo is going to have a shot to win. I don't know if he'll win the race entirely, but I think this 15 car has been really fast this year. He's probably going to be my pick to win when we go to Springfield Mile, which is coming up here very shortly. I'm definitely pumped up and really excited to see that Buddy Kofo will be making his ARCA debut. He's got aspirations to go to NASCAR at some point. Maybe, just maybe, he'll be racing in trucks with another organization in the future, because he may not go to the team we all thought, because this team that we all thought he may go to next year might not be in the truck series next year. But he's done really good in my opinion in ARCA. Made a couple truck starts. He's done really solid in that as well. I expect Buddy Kofo to do pretty solid in his ARCA debut at the Springfield Mile, in my honest opinion. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Mason Maggio. As Mason Maggio is going to be driving 96 for Peck Motorsports this weekend at Richmond. I believe this will be Mason Maggio's second start in the NASCAR Camp Road Truck Series. I believe he made his debut earlier this year at Worldwide Technology Raceway, and now is back with Peck Motorsports. This also, I believe, will be Peck Motorsports' first opportunity racing trucks really since the beginning of the season. So one thing they're going to need to do is get owners' points. Now, I think Mason Maggio is a really talented driver, but it's such a really big depth field that Mason's going to have to qualify his way in. Do I think Mason's capable? Absolutely. I think he's capable of getting in there and getting it done. But we're just going to have to wait and see what happens in regards to that. But I'm pumped to see that Mason Maggio is getting behind the wheel of the 96 truck and helping Peck Motorsports, and hopefully they'll be able to make the field. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Nick Lights. As Nick Lights is going to be driving a 33 for Reagan Brothers Racing this weekend at Richmond. Nick Lights, I believe, has made 1 or 2 starts so far this year in the Camping World Truck Series, and has done okay, but hasn't done fantastic. I believe he ran a Worldwide Technology Raceway, if I'm not mistaken, or another track. I can't exactly remember, but Nick Lights did okay. Wasn't fast, but he did okay, in my opinion, and what I'm hoping from this is Nick can have a really strong run and be fast enough to get this truck in the field. I think this truck has enough owners' points to make the field, but hopefully, if Nick's able to make the field, he can do really good in this truck. Hopefully, he can do really well. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Brennan Poole. As Brennan Poole will be returning to 46 for Glory to God Racing this weekend at Richmond. This will be Glory to God's Racing's first start in nearly 3 or 4 races. They've been out for the last couple weeks due to sponsorship and funding, but also they've been involved in a lot of controversy as well. Not paying drivers, you name it, they've been under a lot of controversy with a lot of different drivers. Their last start, I believe, came earlier this year in Mid-Ohio, and they have not been back for some time. Now, looking at Brennan Poole in this team, I think they're going to be capable of potentially making the field. I think Brennan's a very talented driver, and I think Brennan Poole definitely will give this team a run for the money to make the field. But we're just going to have to wait and see what happens. And pretty excited to see that Brennan Poole will be back in the 46. Hopefully they have good enough trucks to make the field this weekend, in my honest opinion. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Joey Gase. As Joey Gase is going to drive the 20 for Young's Motorsports this weekend at Richmond. I believe this won't be just Joey Gase's first start. I think this will be a second or third start in the truck series this year, but the first time he's run for Young's Motorsports this season. Now, this truck does have some decent owner points, but doesn't have the greatest owner's points currently at the moment. So Joey might have to make it to the field on speed. That being said, though, Joey Gase does have some talent to back it up. He's had a lot of experience, a lot of truck experience. Just hopefully the trucks will be capable of getting it done. Hopefully Joey can have a really good run in this truck, and I'm hoping for the best, and good luck to Joey Gase. Hopefully he'll be able to make the field in the Truck Series race for Young's Motorsports at Richmond. And now we'll go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Lane Riggs. As Lane Riggs is going to drive a 62 for Hallmark Friesen Racing this weekend at Richmond. This has got me pumped up and so excited. Lane Riggs a couple weeks ago in the first race for the Camp World Truck Series playoffs, he was able to make his debut and ran extremely well, had top 5 speeds, ended up getting a top 10 finish in his Camping World Truck Series debut. And that's why they've tapped him for more races this season. And I think he's going to be impressive once again. That short track experience really is going to come into play, and I expect Lane Riggs potentially contend for top 10 or top 15. I know my expectations are really high for Lane Riggs, but Lane Riggs has been super impressive and super, super quick, and I think Lane will have a really good run in this truck this weekend at Richmond. I think he's going to be really fast. I think they're good on owner's points too. I think Lane Riggs will be really, really impressive, and I expect him to have a really good run in that 62 truck. Probably better than some of us think, but I think he's going to have a really strong run this weekend at Richmond. I think he's going to do really, really good. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about David Reagan. As David Reagan is going to be back in the Cup Series and driving the 15 for Rickwer Racing in a couple weeks at Daytona. David Reagan has made a couple starts so far this year in the Cup Series. He made a start in the Daytona 500. He also, I believe, raced at Talladega, and then I believe also raced at Atlanta earlier this year, and now is back behind the wheel of the 15 Select Blinds car. David Reagan, I think, is going to be underdog to win the race. He's a really good super speed racer. Of course, won the 2011 Daytona July race. I think that's going to come into play, and I think that's really going to help a driver out like David Reagan. He's a really, really solid driver, and again, David Reagan's a really good super speed racer, so I expect him to do really well in my opinion, and I think he's going to do really well getting behind the wheel of the 15 car for Rickwer Racing in a couple weeks. In fact, that's about 2 weeks from now, and I think he'll do really, really well in that car, in my opinion. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Chris Wright. As it was reported today that Chris Wright has officially parted ways with Nice Motorsports and will not continue driving for Nice Motorsports starting this weekend at Richmond. Chad Chastain, who is the brother of Ross Chastain, will be in that truck at Richmond. Now, first of all, let's talk about Chad Chastain in the 44 truck. I don't know how good Chad is going to do in the truck. I hope he does better than Chris Wright has been, because Chris Wright has really, really struggled. And Chad Chastain, I think, is a more talented driver than Chris Wright. So it'll be Chad Chastain can do really well and have a great run in that truck. He'll be in the 44 this weekend. As for Chris Wright, I don't want to be disrespectful to Chris Wright. Chris Wright seems like he's a really nice guy. But Chris Wright has just not been cutting it this year in the Truck Series. I believe coming this weekend, he has more incidents than anybody else. Has caused so many incidents, caused so many yellows. But one thing he always has is that sponsorship money, and that's one thing that's really helped him. But what I think is going on is that I think the sponsors realize that Chris Wright really isn't as good as the sponsors really have portrayed him. And I think that's probably why Chris Wright is probably out of that truck for the rest of this season. And I think Nice Motorsports is being smart here as well, because I think Chris Wright has been probably the biggest problem. Also, I think Wallace Allen needs to be taken out as well of it and bring someone else in. But we'll just wait and see what happens long term there. But I don't think Chris Wright's a great driver, and I think that's why he's out of the ride. I still think Chris Wright has really been up to form, has not been up to par, and just has really, really struggled in there. So it doesn't make sense that he's out of the truck, and I was not surprised by it. Again, I said there are going to be a couple of drivers that usually are in those trucks that aren't going to be in, and Chris Wright was one of those. So not a big surprise to me, not a big shocker. You just got to perform, and he has had a lot of wrecks this year and costing Motorsports a ton of money, and sponsorship probably drawn up for Chris Wright. It's unfortunate, but again, I'm not surprised. If you don't have the performance, you're going to unfortunately lose the ride. So I'm not really upset about it, but it's disappointing for sure, in my opinion. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Kimi Raikkonen. Now, Adam Sir reported on Twitter about 2 hours ago, and he basically said that Kimi Raikkonen is on his way to North Carolina right now to prepare for his debut at Watkins Glen next week. Of course, Kimi Raikkonen will be making his NASCAR Cup Series debut in the 91 Project 91 car for Trackhouse Racing at Watkins Glen, and that right now is the only start plan for the 91 car for Trackhouse Racing this season. Now, the plan next year is for them to run all the road course races and maybe also run in the Daytona 500 as well. I just cannot believe how much diversity, how many different cultures, how many different backgrounds are going to be in this event. There's going to be a lot of different names you really would not expect to get involved in this race. And Kimi Raikkonen, of course, a Formula One champion. Of course, he's retired Formula One for a year now. One of the greatest drivers in Formula One history is getting behind the wheel of a Cup Series car. Who would have thought we'd see that coming? I for sure as hell did not expect that. But I think it's amazing to see that Kimi Raikkonen is going to be making his debut. Now, going into my expectations for Kimi Raikkonen, do I think Kimi Raikkonen's going to win? No. I just think the lack of experience is probably going to hurt him. But he's getting a lot of experience. He's not just jumping straight into a Cup car. He's probably going to a track, let's say like Watkins, going to get prepared and get some experience in the car for jumping in. And probably will have NASCAR officials there as well. But I think this is amazing, so awesome to see, and I'm pumped to see that Kimi Raikkonen will be making his NASCAR Cup Series debut, and it's great to see that he's on his way to the racetrack currently at the moment. I'm really pumped up and very excited, to be honest with you. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Justin Haley. As it was announced yesterday or 2 days ago when you're watching this, Justin Haley is going to be driving a 4th Kaulig racing car in the NASCAR Xfinity Series and will drive the 14 car for Kaulig Racing Xfinity at Daytona. Now, of course, if there are more than 30 entries, he will have to qualify his race in on pace and speed. But, of course, Justin Haley is known to be a really great super speed racer, especially at Daytona. Justin Haley's won 4 or 5 races in Xfinity, all those coming as super speedways, and I think he's definitely going to be a threat to defend the race win, because last time we were at Daytona in the fall race, in the summer race, I should say, guess who won that race? Justin Haley. And I expect that car to be just as fast as the other 3. And the fact that you've got 3 really other good super speed racers, guys like Landon Castle, A.J. Allmendinger, and Daniel Hemrick, all on the same team, and Haley being there, it's a really good thing. And it's not a surprise either, because we've been spotting more of his presence at the racetrack. Of course, he's been at the Xfinity Series garage a lot more. He was spotted in New Hampshire, and a lot of people were beginning to speculate and note that we all thought maybe Justin Haley was going to be getting back behind the wheel of an Xfinity Series car. So excited, though, to see that for sure, and I cannot wait for him to get behind the wheel of the car once again in Xfinity. I think he's absolutely going to be a threat for sure to go out there and do some stuff, and I'm excited to see that we're going to see Justin Haley back in the Xfinity Series in the 14 for Kaulig Racing. This will be the first time they've used the 14, so now they've used the 10, the 11, the 14, the 16, and the 16 as well. Those are the numbers they've used so far. Really great to see that we're going to see Justin Haley back in the Xfinity Series, just on a one-off most likely, but great to see Justin Haley back in the Xfinity Series field, at least for one race. There's going to be a lot of Cup guys most likely in that. Of course, they're expecting Ricky Stenhouse Jr. to be with Big Machine Racing during that weekend. I'm just excited to see that he's getting behind the wheel of that car, in my opinion. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Mike Rockenfeller. As Mike Rockenfeller is going to drive the 77 for Spire Motorsports in 2 races this season. He'll be making his Cup Series debut at Watkins Glen in that car, and they'll be racing later this year at the Charlotte Roval. These, of course, being the 2 final road courses. For a lot of you who do not know who Mike Rockenfeller is, I will educate you. Mike Rockenfeller is a 2-time Le Mans 24-hour overall winner, and also has won a lot of races in IMSA, and also in the World Endurance Championship as well. And also currently at the moment competes in the 48 car for Action Express, a Hendrick entry that Chad Knaus manages. He is part of that team. Mike Rockenfeller is an extremely legendary driver. He's won a lot of GT races in Germany as well, and championships in Germany as well. When you think of Mike Rockenfeller, you think of success. And I don't think Mike Rockenfeller is going to go out there and win races in this car. I don't expect the 77 car to be overall the most competitive. But what I have noticed over the last 2 weeks is that Spire Motorsports, after really struggling here for most of the year, the last 2 weeks, this team has been generally getting faster and faster, and they've been finishing more consistently. Both their cars have been finishing near the top 20 every single race now, and I think there's really starting to get a lot more consistency as well. Now, what are my expectations for Mike Rockenfeller getting behind the wheel? I think Mike Rockenfeller is going to do pretty solid. I don't expect Mike Rockenfeller to win, but I think Mike Rockenfeller gets some top 20s. He probably, of course, will get some experience very similar to Kimi Raikkonen. But I think it's just so cool to see that we're getting so many different types of people and basically different types of nationalities and different nationalities coming to series as well. You've got German drivers like Mike Rockenfeller. You've got Brazilian drivers like Tarso Marquez. You potentially have Danny Kvyat from Russia. You, of course, got basically Kimi Raikkonen from, I believe, Sweden or Finland. You got so many legendary drivers coming over from different countries, and I just find it so incredible and so intriguing. I think that when we go, of course, to Watkins Glen in a couple weeks, I think there's going to be so many incredible drivers there, and I'm so excited to see that we're going to see Mike Rockenfeller getting behind the wheel of a Cup car. Amazing to see for sure, and I love that the Next Gen car has been able to divide that this year. Really awesome to see for sure. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about the Michigan TV ratings from this past weekend. It was reported by Adam Stern that, according to him, USA earned a 1.54 rating and 2.621 million viewers for Sunday's race at Michigan. This is up both from last year's event there in late August and the comparable weekend in 2021 at Watkins Glen. This is even with a rain delay, and those are really, really solid numbers for cable numbers. Now, I think if this race had not been rain delayed, I believe this race probably would have gotten around 3 million viewers, which would have been really, really good. But like I mentioned, you look at those numbers and them being up even from last year. And one thing I think they're seeing is I think USA is really showing. We all know that USA has some more viewers than NBC has sent. But I think, one, you're seeing a lot more promotion. NBC has been promoting these races on USA every single week. They gave out the time card. They give out the promotion. And people then know where to come for these races. But also, I think NBC's been doing a good job, at least on the promotion side of things. Now, I do want to see long-term when we get to the next TV deal. I would definitely love to see them get as many races on the broadcast as possible and on broadcast TV. But I think one thing that's just so good to see is that we've been seeing an increase in ratings. And we're on track right now to have the best ratings in NASCAR in nearly 5 or 6 years, even maybe before the Dale Jr. effect really came in when he retired after 2017. I think NASCAR is really on an upward trend. I think some of those reasons, one, the car has just raced so good. Michigan had their best race in a very, very long time. Even look at the Jeff Gluck poll. It was really good numbers in that area and really high percentages in that. And I just think NASCAR right now is doing such a great job when it comes to the car. Now, of course, safety needs to be improved, but I just think right now the racing itself currently at the moment has been really, really good and playing a role in that, but also think the promotion has been a lot better as well. And I think a lot of people are watching too because this playoff battle is so intriguing. There's only one spot left available currently to get in the playoffs right now, and I think that's another reason why people are tuning into this as well. I'm so excited for sure to see that, and I'm very happy to see that the ratings continue to go up every single week. Really, again, just so cool seeing NASCAR is heading in a really good direction right now when it comes to their TV ratings. And I hope they can continue this momentum as we get. Unfortunately, I think we'll lose some ratings when we get closer to football season, but hopefully we can end the year on a much higher note than we have in previous years and get end this year on a great note in the ratings department. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the first of two major stories in today's episode as we're talking about Sam Mayer. As it was announced this morning that Sam Mayer is going to be returning to Junior Motorsports in 2023, driving the one car once again. This, of course, 2022 was the first full-time season for Sam Mayer. And while Sam Mayer has not won a race so far this year, he currently sits 9th in the points, has really improved from 2021, as in 2021 he ran half the year. He really, really struggled. While he's had some struggles over the last few months, Sam Mayer is definitely really much improved compared to last year. And I do expect that Sam Mayer is only going to get better as time goes on. I would not be surprised or be shocked if Sam Mayer is a championship contender heading into 2023, because I think Sam Mayer is going to be a championship threat. You've got the potential of Ty Gibbs going to Cup next year. You've got Noah Gragson looking like he'll be going to Cup next year. That's expected to be announced later today when you're watching this. And then, of course, you've got other drivers who could be going to Cup in the future. Austin Hill could be jumping at the Cup in the long-term future. There's a lot of drivers who potentially could be moving up. And I'll be honest, what drivers in the next year are going to be championship threats? Probably Josh Berry, of course. Justin Allgaier, of course. But who's going to be back next year? That's one thing we know. But I do believe Sam Mayer is going to win races next year. I really think. Even might even win races for the end of 2022. Who really knows? Because, again, like I mentioned, I think Sam Mayer has been generally really, really proving and showing much more of a craft. Going to next year for Sam Mayer, my expectations are as I do believe that he is going to really improve. I think he's going to win at least 1 or 2 races, and I think he will become a championship threat next year, especially with some of the guys in Xfinity going up and him only going to get better as time goes on. And he's a young driver, too. You have to remember, Sam Mayer is only 19 years old and will be 20 at the start of the 2023 season. He's definitely got plenty of time to really show and improve, and he's young enough. I know people have called him a bust, and people have seen, like, why is he getting the one car? Because he's the only Junior Motorsports car that really hasn't shown it. Well, those guys have a lot more experience. And remember, Noah Gragson wasn't great in Xfinity. He did start to get better as time went on. Beginning, he wasn't the best driver out there for Junior Motorsports. Guess what happened? He's a championship throughout this year. He's won 3 races so far, and has been really improving over the year. And then you look at Sam Mayer, he's done the same thing. He's getting better. For some drivers, it takes a little bit longer and for them to get more experience. Austin Cindric is kind of in the same position. Cindric struggled at first. Guess what? Went on to win the championship in 2020. Nearly went back-to-back last year, and now is in the Cup Series. I think that Sam Mayer is going to eventually get the Cup as well. Probably, and of course, not with Hendrick Motorsports, because Hendrick's probably going to be set for the long-term period. But I'm just so happy that Sam Mayer is coming back next year. I think it's well-earned and well-deserved, in my opinion, because he has been improving and been showing a lot more. And like I said, I think Sam Mayer is only going to get better as time goes on. I think he'll be in Cup in the next couple years by, I don't think any later than 2025 he'll be in Cup. I think he's going to have at least 2 or 3 more years, at least 1 or 2 more years in Xfinity, and then by 2025 he's going to go ahead and make the jump up the Cup. But I think this is well earned in my opinion. Also got great sponsorships. Junior Motorsports and Dale Jr. really believe in Sam Mayer. And of course, the guy was really impressive when he won in Truck Series at Bristol at age 17. I expect him to only get better as time goes on, and I think the Sam Mayer is really going to improve and impress long term, in my opinion. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the final major story in today's video as we're talking about Kyle Busch. Now, we've talked about Kyle Busch a ton on this channel. It seems like it's a weekly thing we're going to be talking about Kyle Busch. Well, we've got another update in regards to Kyle Busch and his future at Joe Gibbs Racing. Well, it sounds like there's a very good possibility that he may be done with Joe Gibbs Racing. According to Door Bumper Clear podcast last night, they mentioned that a couple things. They have said that Chevy has entered the conversations to potentially get involved with Kyle Busch. There's 114 that is talking to him, and Joe Gibbs apparently has stopped talking to Kyle Busch. Sounds like they might be done with Kyle Busch. First thing, let's talk about what is going on. Right now, Kyle Busch is with Joe Gibbs Racing at least through the end of 2022. What has been going on is M&M's is leaving at the end of this season. And right now, they have not been able to find a sponsor for Kyle Busch. And we're in the middle of August. Now, usually when it comes to sponsorship in the fiscal year, generally the fiscal year for a lot of teams is set by September in the world of NASCAR. And we know that Kyle Busch is willing to take pay cuts. He said that he's willing to take precautions and take pay cuts, either find a different ride or basically get a ride. But what team is going to be willing to offer money? And also, Joe Gibbs Racing has another big thing going on right now, and that is Ty Gibbs. Now, Ty Gibbs could absolutely go to Johnny 311 full-time next year if Kurt Busch does not return next year, if his injuries still continue. We are not even sure if Kurt Busch is going to be medically cleared to race at this weekend at Richmond. He wants to be back this weekend, but we're not even sure if he's going to be back this weekend. So if Ty Gibbs might go there. But I think also Joe Gibbs Racing is looking at his performance in the 2311 camp, and Ty Gibbs has been really impressive. Ty Gibbs has finished 16th, 17th, and got a top 10, even led laps in Michigan, and got 10th, by the way, even with a speeding penalty, which is really, really impressive for a driver like Ty Gibbs. They're pushing Kurt Busch. He can be back this weekend, but that could be a possibility. But I think Joe Gibbs knows they don't have as much leverage. Kyle Busch doesn't have as much leverage. And like I said, it's becoming more and more apparent, more likely that Kyle Busch is probably not going to be returning to Joe Gibbs Racing. He did say last week to the media at the Indy Road Course, he did say that he really is unsure if he's going to be back with Jay. He really said he wants to be back. He's willing to take a one-year deal with Joe Gibbs Racing and take a pay cut. But he's probably still wanting a lot of money. And again, it doesn't matter how much pay cuts you have or not. You still got to have that sponsor to be going in. Like I said, we're getting into crunch time right now. We're near the playoffs. We're in the middle of August, and I know people think 6 months really is a long time. We're still only got under 6 months left, and that's not a ton of time when it comes to finding sponsorship. That's going to fly by really, really quickly. The season's already flying by, and it's going to fly by really, really quickly. So, now we get to the other situation is, where could Kyle Busch go next year? Well, we kind of talk about this on the channel on, I believe, Thursday, if I'm not mistaken, or Friday of this week. But basically, there are 2 teams that are in the conversation for Kyle Busch if he does a return. Let's first talk about the 4 team. Who is this 4 team? The 4 team is Stewart-Haas Racing. Stewart-Haas Racing has been probably the most likely candidate if Kyle Busch doesn't return to Joe Gibbs Racing. This is the team that right now is the most likely candidate to pick up Kyle Busch. A lot of people ask, well, what number would he go to? Would he go to the 10 car? Well, from what we've heard behind the scenes and everything, Eric Almirola is more than likely going to be staying with Stewart-Haas Racing, and it's probably expected that he is going to return there next year, and that announcement is going to be coming in the future. One, Smithfield's really trying to get him back to drive a 10 car next year, but Eric Almirola has not been terrible. He's not been great this series, 18th in the regular season points, but Eric Almirola has not been terrible this year and has been a little bit better. And I think Eric Almirola said, well, he doesn't want to return full time. He did say that if he'd be willing to at least come back for 1 more year. So that's one of the rides that would be filled up. So where would he go with Stewart-Haas Racing? Well, it's very obvious. The 41 car. There's been a lot of rumors and rumblings around Cole Custer. Now, Cole Custer, according to what we've heard, Cole Custer could either go to Rick Ware Racing or could go to SS Greenlight Racing and Xfinity, or even Stewart-Haas Racing and Xfinity. Now, I like Cole Custer a lot, but outside of his win at Kentucky, Cole Custer has been very, very disappointing, to say the least. His performance has not really been there. He's really, really struggled at the 41 car, and he's been outside the top 20 points pretty much every single year, except year he made the playoffs. And had he not won that race at Kentucky, he wouldn't have even made the playoffs. he's really, really struggled. Now, I think if Cole Custer goes to Rick Ware Racing next year, I think he's really going to benefit there and actually do really, really well and really impress. Or going back to Xfinity, where I think he's done really good there, and I honestly think it would benefit him to go more back to Xfinity than go over to Rick Ware Racing. Because like I said, I think Cole Custer's done good in Xfinity. It just seems like he's not been able to really do well good with these Cup cars. And we all thought maybe this year was really going to happen, but it hasn't happened. If you put Kyle Busch in a 41 car next year, I think Kyle Busch is going to do really well in that car. I really think he is. Do I think he's going to win a championship in that car? Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? But I think the 41 car, if you put Kyle Busch in there, he absolutely is going to do really, really good in that car. I expect him to do really good next year in that car if he goes in a 41 car, and that's the favorite. Now let's go to the Chevy team. Who is the Chevy team that is in the conversations? Well, some of you probably think, well, maybe Hendrick Motorsports. Well, while maybe they could be in the conversations, I don't think Hendrick Motorsports in the conversation. Hendrick Motorsports has all 4 drivers locked up through next year. Alex Bowman through 2023, Kyle Larson through 2023, Chase Elliott through 2027, and then William Byron through 2025. And I don't see Alex Bowman get let early, even though Alex Bowman really hasn't done great this year, except he won. I just haven't seen really great improvements from Alex Bowman, but they're not going to get rid of any of their drivers. So who's the team? The team is reportedly Kaulig Racing. Athletic has said that Kaulig Racing is that Chevy team that is in conversations. Well, it's been reported that Matt Kaulig apparently has not had any conversations, but it seems like maybe we're starting to hear more that maybe there are conversations going around with Kaulig Racing. Now, if you look at Kaulig Racing, it would definitely be a downgrade for Kyle Busch to go from Joe Gibbs Racing to Kaulig Racing, because Kaulig Racing is an amazing team. But they're not a bad team, and Kyle Busch can really build this team around him. They've got a really good dynamic double right now. You've got AJ Allmendinger, who's doing really well in Xfinity. And when he's in Cup, he does really well there and runs really well. And if they do have a win, and they've shown more improvement and more progress in the Cup Series, Kaulig Racing would be a really good option, in my opinion, for Kyle Busch to go to if that becomes available. And I think that would be a great team to go to, maybe drive another car. And there was a wild rumor back. I talked about this last week when I was talking about where Kyle Busch could go next year. Or talk about this where basically there was a rumor that Kyle Busch maybe drive 51 for Kaulig and have Rowdy Energy. And Kyle Busch, I thought maybe Celsius could play a factor, but they could probably both work together. There's a possibility right there. So that's an option. So at this point, what happens to Kyle Busch? Well, I'm starting to think at this point that Kyle Busch is out at Joe Gibbs Racing. The fact that they're not talking anymore, according to what the Door Bumper Clear Pocket said, and they've usually had a lot of reliable reports from that company, I really think there's a good chance maybe he doesn't go back to Joe Gibbs Racing. The only way I see him going back to Joe Gibbs Racing is if they can find a sponsor. I don't think, unfortunately, they're going to be able to find a sponsor. I just think we're too far down the road into the season. I think Kyle Busch is going to have to start looking. Petty GMS ain't going to be available because they're expecting now Noah Gragson the 42 here in the next couple hours after watching this. And, of course, you got other things that are going on other teams. But I'm thinking right now Kyle Busch is going to Stewart-Haas Racing. And, honestly, I think Stewart-Haas Racing, it would be a massive benefit and a massive asset to go to Stewart-Haas Racing and really benefit their team. Now, another thing is what happens to Kyle Busch Motorsports. I would think they become a Ford team as well and become, instead of Ford development team. And I think that's something that also needs to be talked about as well going into next season. This stuff is sort of going to be falling as time goes on, but it's becoming more and more likely that Kyle Busch is going to be done driving for Joe Gibbs Racing after this season. So anyway, that is for today's NASCAR news and other motorsports video. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notifications to be notified when a video does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on Patreon as well. Let's get jump over that and comment your thoughts on today's video. Do you think that the reports are true? Do you think Kyle Busch is out at Joe Gibbs Racing or not? Let me know in the comments below. And what are your thoughts about Sam Mayer returning to Joe Gibbs returning to Junior Motorsports in 2023? Let me know in the comments below. Tomorrow on my channel, we're going to be having NASCAR news revolved around the 42 car for Petty GMS. And then later that evening at 8:30 is going to be my first ever stream. That'll be happening 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Make sure to tune into that stream. I'll have the reminder out for you guys here. And make sure to tune into that stream at 8:30 Central Standard Time. Make sure to tune in. So anyway, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's video. And I'll see you guys next time for some more great, awesome NASCAR and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.